Awesome stuff. Thanks so much for that, Rachel. So glad you could join us. Shannon Bradbury along with you. Across the country, we are feeling the warmth, except if you are in Newfoundland, unfortunately not so much, and a northerly wind will also cool things off as we head toward your Thursday and Friday. But across the west, feeling the warmth too, and a ridge continuing to build in, keeping that precipitation well to the north. However, you can see where the active weather is happening with this low covering parts of eastern Canada. That will be the case in the next few days, exactly depending on what province you are in. Throughout today into your overnight period, it's an Ontario story. But watch as we head toward your overnight. That risk for thunderstorms shifts further toward the extreme southwest. Then as we get to Thursday, bumps back up, so more widespread. But you might see those locally throughout your day today into Thursday, and we even have the risk again for your Friday afternoon, covering much of southern Ontario. But as we head to Friday, the risk doesn't become the heavy rainfall quite as much. It's more so those strong winds that are going to be more of a concern. Locally, heavy downpours are a possibility, so watch for any localized flooding, especially if you have already been dealing with a little of that rather in your area. As we head to Atlantic Canada, certainly we do not need any more rainfall in New Brunswick. We are still dealing with significant flooding, primarily in the southern section of the province. Fredericton's battling that throughout your day into your evening, especially, and overnight is where we have that threat for thunderstorms. Meanwhile, it's thunderstorm season. Many people, I'm sure, are excited to see this because a lot of storm chasers around. People do love thunderstorms, and we here at the Weather Network like providing you with updates when we can. So across northern sections of Alberta, as well as right along the border into Saskatchewan, we do have that slight risk throughout your afternoon and evening to see some thunderstorms, but mostly dry lightning will be a threat with this as we are moisture starved. There is a low moving through, not a lot of moisture associated with it. What this means is the threat to see some brush fires popping up, strong winds, dry lightning. That could definitely be the recipe. So if you are in one of those areas, definitely something to keep in mind as you look toward the west coast of BC, the precipitation staying far to the north as we get to your late week and into the weekend. Those in the south coast, Vancouver, you have the slight risk to see some showers. 18 for your Thursday, close to seasonal, 21 in Regina, 23 in Winnipeg, and 20 in Toronto. We are now starting to see those temperatures all across the board where they should be. May is turning out to be quite nice so far. 16 in Halifax, 20 in Montreal. Did you know most of the cities across most of the major cities across Canada have reached 20 degrees. Thunder Bay beat Toronto to it, actually. Across the prairies, we've reached that too. 20 in Calgary as well as in Regina as we end off the week. Wherever you are across the country, your local forecast starts now. Hey there, you're watching the Weather Network. Hope you're having a fantastic day. So glad you could join us. Shannon Bradbury along with you. Want to just talk about the temperatures. All across the country, we have been feeling the warmth, and it is about time. April was brutal for many Canadians, but May is shaping up to be quite nice. You can see warm conditions as we look on the prairies, but it really does depend on where you are. Now further east, as that ridge builds back in, we are a little bit cooler, even into northwestern Ontario, where we had thunderstorms yesterday, and even temperatures warmer as we ended off the weekend than in southern Ontario. So it does depend on where you are. As we play this through, this moisture-starved low could produce some thunderstorms throughout the region, but essentially what that means is dry lightning will be a risk. Primarily as we head northern Alberta, areas like even Edmonton, Cold Lake, right along the border into Saskatchewan, we'll be watching you. And we do have the risk to see some showers, but for the most part, it is likely to be dry lightning that is produced. Into southern Ontario, much of Ontario and Quebec, we are feeling the warmth, and it is the warmest so far this year. It is about time. It kind of feels like summer out there, even a little bit humid with more of a southwesterly flow. A bit gusty as we head to your evening, overnight, and actually just to end off the week, it's going to remain rather gusty and also active. We do have enough storm energy to produce some thunderstorms throughout today. We've already seen those popping up toward Grey Bruce and Simcoe counties. Into your evening hours, overnight, that risk shifts further toward the southwest. And then as we get back to your Thursday morning and afternoon, that builds back in again. So it will again depend on where you are. Still sticking though with that strong southwesterly flow. Actually Friday too. A little bit overcast, but it does look gorgeous. Nonetheless, the East Coast is a wonderful place. Unfortunately, we are still dealing with showers and it remaining unsettled. Those systems that we're talking about across Ontario and Quebec, essentially they're moving in waves and they are following the pattern of west to east. So throughout your evening, overnight, those in the Maritimes will see this rainfall by your morning. Thursday. We'll start to see this easing as it pushes into Newfoundland, but not for long because this next system moves in as we head toward your Thursday evening, a little bit earlier on than the system's moving in tonight. So you'll be able to time that out exactly where you are in your local forecast. But unfortunately, what this means is the risk for more prolonged rainfall and flooding, which we have already seen a lot of, especially in New Brunswick. And this could be the worst flooding that those in the south of the province have seen in decades. There are almost 2,000 people evacuated in St. John, New Brunswick. As we look at the rainfall, you can see it is prolonged all across eastern Canada, so watch for that risk for flooding. Coming up next, we'll take a look at your long-range forecast. Your locals are now. Awesome. Thanks, Chris, for that. Your long-range forecast is just ahead, but if we quickly look at your weather happening right now, you can certainly see where the warmth is, and many Canadians are finally feeling this. However, we do have a system moving on the prairies, and that is really moisture-starved. Some areas, Calgary, Winnipeg, have the slight risk to see a shower, but for the most part, thunderstorms associated with dry lightning will be a risk. Eastern Canada, though, we are talking waves and waves of moisture moving through. We are seeing some thunderstorms move through southern Ontario now. We have the risk into the Maritimes later on this evening and through the overnight period. Unfortunately, we do not need any more rainfall across many areas, but especially New Brunswick. And what's in store for the long-range forecast? Here's Dr. Doug Gillum. Let's take a look. As we look quickly across the country, dry conditions replacing that moisture on the prairies. This could actually be a little bit problematic with a moisture-starved system moving through to the north, bringing in the risk for dry lightning, strong winds too, so brush fires are a threat. Meanwhile, eastern Canada is dealing with waves and waves of moisture, and this will continue depending on where you are. Ontario, Quebec, the Maritimes, Newfoundland, and Labrador from now right through the end of the week. We'll be timing this system out throughout the hour. Stay with us. Hey there, Shannon Bradbury along with you in for Chris May this afternoon. Across the country, we are feeling the warmth. This is your temperature for this evening. 21 in Toronto, 23 in Windsor, and 14 in Charlottetown. Still cold in St. John's, and a northerly wind is going to keep it that way, unfortunately. We do have the risk for some thunderstorms throughout this evening, and that will continue actually right through the next couple of days. It does shift, though, further toward the extreme southwest as we head toward your overnight and into Thursday morning. But then by the afternoon, that risk becomes a little bit more widespread and into your evening. It's not over there, though. As we end off the week Friday, more widespread across southern Ontario, we do have the risk for these thunderstorms. However, the main threats will shift. Strong winds are going to be the most concerning with this into southern Ontario. Atlantic Canada, we certainly do not need any more of the precipitation. We are dealing with flooding all across the country. The Peace and Athabasca rivers, for instance, parts of Ontario have been dealing with that. And I actually just got an update on the Severn River, which was flowing 4 feet above normal. It looks to have dropped a little bit. However, we still are dealing with fast stream flows across New Brunswick. Thunderstorm risk and the flooding is ongoing. Here's our meteorologist, Aaron Wankstern. Thank you, Aaron, for that update. You can also head to theweathernetwork.com. We have lots of articles being updated online and by the numbers, too, on what is happening across the maritime provinces. This afternoon, 21 in Calgary, 22 in Kelowna. The temperatures are finally feeling like spring, maybe even summer, depending on where you are. However, the biggest concern is the dry conditions that are on the prairies. We do have a low that's moving through. However, it's moisture-starved. We're not going to see a lot of rain associated with this. Just a slight chance for showers. Thunderstorm threat, especially Edmonton and north, right along the border into Saskatchewan. With dry lightning, not a lot of moisture, the risk becomes brush fires and pop-up fires. Strong winds accompanying this too. So really something that we're going to continue to monitor here at the Weather Network. For your Thursday, 21 in Regina, 20 in Calgary, 23 in Winnipeg, and 20 in Toronto, as well as in Montreal. We are finally seeing those temperatures in the 20s, if not high teens, a little bit cooler as we end off the week if you are across Winnipeg and even Ontario, parts of Quebec. Wherever you are, your local forecast starts right now. Thanks, Rachel, for that. You can head to theweathernetwork.com to see more top and trending videos just like that. Across the country, we are feeling the warmth, and if you are in the prairies, that's going to continue even into your long-range forecast. Good news. However, with the system moving through that is really moisture-starved, we have the threat to see some dry lightning. That could cause some concerns, especially if you are in places like northern Alberta, bordering into Saskatchewan, which of course is where those forest fires are more prominent. So a risk for sure, strong winds too. As that moves further toward the east, we have a slight risk to see some showers. Calgary, for instance, you'll notice that in your 7-day forecast. If you are in Winnipeg, you have the slight risk to see some showers, not a washout by any means, and your temperature is warm. This ridge is really meaning warm temperatures all across the country. We are really feeling this. Most provinces, most major cities are dealing with the warmth, and it is about time. We have active weather, though, moving into eastern Canada. It started stateside, where we have severe weather happening. So we do have the risk for severe thunderstorms and even tornadoes stateside. Throughout the region, southern Ontario, risk for thunderstorms. We've already seen those popping up today. Through your evening, overnight, that risk does continue. Does shift further toward the southwest, though, by the overnight period, and then builds back up further north as we head toward your Thursday afternoon and right through the evening. These are likely going to be non-severe thunderstorms, but of course, you always want to be on the lookout and err on the safe side of things. Across Atlantic Canada, these systems will make their way toward you. Essentially, we're seeing almost pulses or waves of this moisture by the evening and into your overnight. Those showers become heavier, clearing by your Thursday late morning and afternoon, but not for long because more showers filter into the Maritime provinces as we head toward your Thursday evening. Again, right through the overnight period, those will follow suit, moving into Newfoundland. And with a northerly wind, you are going to feel much colder. We even have the threat to see a little bit of wet snow mixing into those higher elevations of Newfoundland further toward the north, the long-range mountains, for instance. You might see that. And it does look like winter for some, for instance, Happy Valley Goose Bay. There's your moisture, though. Prolonged rainfall. We are dealing with significant flooding. Send them to us when it is safe to do so. Tonight is Storm Hunters, and we are talking all about Fort McMurray wildfires. And actually, in our next segment, we'll also talk a little bit more about that, too. Hope you can stick around. Your local forecast starts right now. Wow, thank you for that report. Our Storm Hunters were there as well. And tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, an episode of Storm Hunters talking more about this, the fires at Fort McMurray. Hope you can tune in. Let's dive into the active weather happening now. We'll start in the west, where very dry conditions are in place, and we even have the threat to see some dry lightning, which actually could be a concern even for brush fires to begin. 17 in Fort McMurray this afternoon, 13 in Slave Lake. This thunderstorm risk likely stays north of Edmonton, bordering into Saskatchewan. Into southern Ontario, thunderstorms are rolling through. That has already been happening throughout the day today, depending on where you are. Further north toward Grey Bruce, and then even central Ontario. Heavier amounts of rain through your Thursday as we head toward the southwest. That's because more prolonged thunderstorms could be a threat even into your overnight, right through Thursday afternoon and evening, and then again as we end off the week on Friday. Meanwhile, heavy amounts of rain, especially north of the St. Lawrence, and where we do not need rain at all is across New Brunswick. Unfortunately, it remains unsettled for the next couple of days. We'll join our meteorologist Aaron Wangstern throughout the hour to talk more about that. Awesome stuff. Thank you, Rachel, for that. I run into this all the time, and actually my dog is in that story, Tinsel, so she is getting her airtime today in the next couple of days. This evening, 22 degrees in Toronto, feeling like 25, 18 in Barrie. That's your evening temperature, if you can believe it. We are getting into a very strong southwesterly flow. However, if you are closer to the lakeshore, you will certainly feel the difference in those temperatures. Much colder, and we are talking about 5, maybe even closer to 10 degrees colder, depending on where you are located. There's your storm energy. We've got that moderate energy throughout your evening into your overnight period as well. But notice as that shifts further toward the extreme southwest, diminishes the risk throughout the overnight as we lose some of that heat and energy. Meanwhile, as temperatures build back up again for your Thursday afternoon, that risk becomes a little bit more widespread. And again, even into Friday. So it is a little bit active and unsettled as we head through the rest of the week. There's your rainfall amounts. We are looking at about 30 millimeters of rain if you are further to the southwest, closer to Lake Huron. Areas like the Niagara region are about 15 to 20 millimeters, give or take, and east and north of Toronto are sitting around that 25 millimeters. Where you are exactly, you can check out your local forecast and how much rain you are expected to get. Friday, 18 in Toronto as well as in Barrie, and there is that threat to see some thunderstorms. Coming up next, how long does this heat stick around? We'll talk about it more in the long-range forecast. Also, want to let you know Storm Hunters is tonight, 7 p.m. Hey there, you're watching the Weather Network. Hope you're having a fantastic week wherever you are joining us from. Shannon Bradbury in for Chris May this afternoon. This evening, 22 degrees. We have the risk to see some active weather moving in the next couple of days, even thunderstorms. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. But before we look ahead, let's look back at the numbers from that ice storm that rolled through the region. Wow, thank you, Suzanne, for that. I remember covering that ice storm, and it was absolutely terrible. Thousands of people impacted and without power. This is the thunderstorm threat now as we shift toward the evening throughout the overnight. That boundary will become a little bit more confined to the extreme southwest. We will see that diminish a little bit. Even earlier on this afternoon, we have seen some thunderstorms rolling through, depending on where you are, because, for instance, Toronto, Nice clear blue skies. That cloud cover, though, did build in a little bit by the evening. As we head to your Thursday afternoon and evening hours, that's where the thunderstorm threat becomes a little bit more widespread once again, and even to end off the week. So an active next couple of days. Friday, though, the strongest threat with this thunderstorm risk will be the strong winds opposed to heavy rain. 20 in Toronto for Thursday, 16 in Barrie, and 18 in Peterborough for your Friday. 18 in Toronto as well as in Barrie. A little bit cooler again the closer to the lakeshore you do go. Saturday, 17, though, if you do have plans to get outside this weekend. I certainly do on Sunday, but unfortunately, we have the slight risk to see some showers into the region and also a touch cooler. 17, though, on Saturday and straight sunshine in Toronto. If you are heading a little bit further north, maybe you are going up to the cottage, opening it up. I'm sure many people now that we are seeing sunshine are thinking about opening up their cottages. 15 in Barrie for your Saturday and 14 on Sunday. However you are spending the warm weather, the sunshine, let us know. We'd love to see your photos and videos. This is where you can find me on social media, and you can take a look at your long-range forecast trend right now in your local forecast. Stay with us.